Myst, Might, Mayhem. By Han Jung-Wioya. Chapter 245. Consort Ho. Part 1. Won't you let me join in too, guys? The sudden appearance of the stunningly beautiful woman in splendid red and gold clothes momentarily hardened the expressions of Mok Jaehyun and Chong Ryong, who was possessing Prince Jaehyun's body. That's because in the hand of this woman, whom they were seeing for the first time, was the torn head of Chief Eunuch Ho of the Western Depot. What the hell? Mok Jaehyun's hardened eyes wavered. Since he had surrounded the room with deadly energy to completely block out sound, he couldn't accurately sense the approaching sounds from outside. However, he didn't feel anything from this woman who had opened the door and entered. He couldn't see the color of her energy, neither through his senses nor his physical eyes. What is her identity? There was one time he had encountered a similar case. It was when he met the old man with the bamboo fishing rod. Due to his overwhelmingly superior level, it was difficult to even sense his energy, and even when he opened the power of his third eye, his eyes couldn't withstand the pressure of the energy. At that moment, Chong Ryong, who was possessing Prince Jaehyun, opened her mouth. Consort Ho? When possessing someone, depending on the degree of assimilation, one could read their memories. Even if it wasn't complete assimilation, if it was someone Prince Jaehyun was familiar with, Chong Ryong could also immediately recognize them. Consort Ho? At Chong Ryong's words, Mok Jaehyun couldn't hide his bewilderment. If she was Consort Ho, wasn't she one of the two women the emperor favored? How did she appear holding the head of Chief Eunuch Ho of the Western Depot, who had gone out to seek help? As he was puzzled, Chong Ryong spoke with a perplexed expression. Consort Ho, what in the world are you doing? Isn't that Eunuch Ho's head in your hand? She spoke as if she had truly become Prince Jaehyun. With this, Mok Jaehyun immediately grasped Chong Ryong's intentions. It seemed that since she couldn't determine the other party's true identity, she was trying to act as Prince Jaehyun for now. Therefore, to play along, Mok Jaehyun tried to clasp his hands together and bow his head. However, PFT. The woman called Consort Ho let out a mocking laugh. Then, she tossed the head of Eunuch Ho she was holding. Thud. Roll, roll, roll. Consort Ho walked into the quarters and spoke. Don't overdo the acting. Spirit. At those words, the eyes of Chong Ryong, who was possessing Prince Jaehyun, slightly wavered. What the hell was this woman's true identity? Since she had reached the level of a blue spirit, even ordinary necromancers had difficulty discerning that she was possessing someone. Yet, she had immediately noticed it. Her confident tone made it difficult to play dumb or make excuses. Therefore, Chong Ryong spoke with sharpened eyes. Who the hell are you? You? That's right. You. Pack. At that moment, Consort Ho, who had appeared in front of Chong Ryong possessing Prince Jaehyun in an instant, tried to grab her neck. However, at that very moment, Pack. Chong Ryong, who was about to be grabbed, pushed herself to the side, and someone grabbed Consort Ho's wrist. It was none other than Mok Jaehyun. Looking at her grabbed wrist, Consort Ho curled her lips and said, "You're quite fast for someone with an old man's face." Mok Jaehyun didn't respond to her words. No, it was more accurate to say he couldn't respond. Tremble, tremble. Although he was grasping her wrist, apart from it being slender, it was so unbelievably strong that it was difficult for him to withstand it. Just as he thought he should let go. Bam! Crash! At that moment, Mok Jaehyun's body, which was holding Consort Ho's wrist, crashed into the wall of the quarters and broke through it. Consort Ho, who had easily thrown off Mok Jaehyun, turned her gaze to Chong Ryong. I can tell your level is quite high, but it seems you don't know your place. Spirit. You. Bam. Before she could finish speaking, Chong Ryong's body was slammed to the floor. Consort Ho was pressing down on her head, and although she shouldn't have been able to feel pain even if she was possessing a human body. Ugh. A groan escaped her lips due to the intense pain that seemed to penetrate her head. Chong Ryong looked at Consort Ho with perplexed, widened eyes. The sight of her grinning as if she was having the time of her life made it seem like she was enjoying this situation. At that sight, Chang Ryong could instinctively tell. This woman is not human. It wasn't a statement stemming from her personality. She truly wasn't human. She hadn't noticed it because her energy wasn't revealed, but this force pressing down on her head was undoubtedly demonic power. Moreover, it was demonic power that was immensely vast and pure to an immeasurable degree. If just a fragment of it was this powerful, what was the true identity of this being? A demon beast? No. It could be even higher than that. No matter how high level a demon beast Mayhem was, as a spirit who had reached the indigo spirit level, her spiritual power was not inferior to it. At least, she couldn't be overwhelmingly suppressed like this. If that was the case, could it be a spiritual beast? Was this woman, who had the appearance of a beautiful human, a spiritual beast? Spiritual beasts were considered the highest level of Mayhem. How could such a being exist in the palace as a woman favored by the emperor? As she was perplexed, Consort Ho spoke. You're an interesting one. Most spirits or monsters wouldn't dare enter my territory, but seeing you enter so fearlessly. Crunch. Arg. As Consort Ho pressed down on her head even harder, a scream burst out from Chang Ryong's mouth. Chang Ryong felt pain that seemed like it would shatter her spiritual body. Right at that moment. Rumble. A vast curse power spread throughout the quarters. Along with it, 4 pillars shot up around Consort Ho. Seeing the 4 pillars that had risen, Consort Ho's eyes flickered with interest. I wonder what this is. Consort Ho looked at the pillars, then turned her gaze. There, Mok Jianan walked out from beyond the shattered wall, forming a hand seal with one hand and grasping his sword finger with the other. I felt curse power, but I didn't know you could also use sorcery. As soon as she finished speaking, Mok Jianan extended his sword finger toward Consort Ho. 4 peaks linking technique. Whoosh. Along with this, a wall of curse power formed from the pillars and connected. Then, it tried to imprison Consort Ho. Shrink. Mok Jianan made a grasping motion with his palm. The size of the wall created by the 4 peaks linking technique began to shrink. The intention was to cleverly reduce the size of the curse power wall to cut off and trap only Consort Ho's wrist, which was pressing down on Chang Ryong's head. However, right at that moment. You have a lot of tricks up your sleeve, but what can you do? Consort Ho smirked and flicked her finger at the wall of curse power that was about to connect. Clang. Rip. At that moment, along with the rebound, Mok Jianan's palm was torn and forcibly opened. Not only that, but the wall of curse power that was meant to imprison Consort Ho shattered into pieces, and the curse power scattered in all directions. Petty tricks won't work, so what? Swoosh. At that moment, Mok Jianan's figure appeared in front of her. Then, he thrust his sword finger, infused with sharp sword energy, toward Consort Ho's eyes. Realizing that sorcery didn't work on her, Mok Jianan immediately switched to martial arts and chose to directly attack her. However, Pack. Consort Ho waved her hand without dodging Mok Jianan's sword finger at all. Then, Mok Jianan's figure, which was thrusting his sword finger, scattered like an afterimage. At the same time, bam! Crash! Mok Jianan's figure was hit by something right behind her and slammed into the floor. The impact was so strong that it broke through the floor of the quarters and created a depression around it. Disciple. Chang Ryong called out to Mok Jianan in shock. Then, she noticed something fluttering above the spot where Mok Jianan had fallen. It was a tail with golden fur. A tail? The tail was connected to none other than under Consort Ho's skirt. Consort Ho covered her mouth and laughed. Ho ho ho, petty tricks like that shadow clone technique won't work on me. No, you should at least create 10 clones for me to possibly find an opening. Swish swish. Along with that, golden tails rose from under Consort Ho's skirt. There were quite a few tails. Seeing the tails, Chang Ryong's pupils shook intensely. Golden tails? At that moment, A vicious and dark energy suddenly surged from the crater in the floor. It was none other than demonic energy. Consort Ho's eyes glimmered with interest as she looked at the flowing demonic energy. It was because she had never felt such energy before. It's not human, not a spirit, and not an energy I've felt from monsters either. Right then. Whoosh! The surging demonic energy suddenly multiplied several times in an instant. Then, the energy gathered into a single point within the crater and brushed past Consort Ho in a fleeting moment. Swish! A black line appeared in the air. Along with it, Mok Jianyan stood right behind Consort Ho, breathing roughly. Ha! Ha! The greatest technique he could currently execute was this sword energy and the technique of gathering all his power into a single point. Creak! Creak! His muscles tensed up and cried out throughout his body. Although he didn't collapse like before, it was still a tremendous technique beyond his comprehension, so he couldn't use it consecutively more than once at the moment. Mok Jianyan slowly turned his head. Upon turning his head, Mok Jianyan frowned. That's because despite it being his most powerful strike with all his might, Consort Ho was unaffected. No, it wasn't that she was completely unaffected. Drip. A single scratch appeared on her beautiful cheek, and a drop of blood flowed from it. Consort Ho wiped it with her sleeve and raised an eyebrow. Blood. Although it was just a single drop, when was the last time this had happened? No, it was virtually non-existent. It was the first time since her birth that a mere human had inflicted a wound on her. Consort Ho's eyes turned cold, and then the color of her eyes and hair began to change. Swish swish. They took on a golden hue that felt noble and splendid. At her transformation, Mok Jianyan swallowed his dry saliva. Even without opening the power of his third eye, the energy emanating from the transformed Consort Ho was so distant that it sent chills down his spine. Swish swish. Behind her, whose hair and eyes had turned golden, 9 tails rose like mountain peaks. 9 tails? Seeing this, something flashed through Mok Jianyan's mind. There is a being known to be even worse than the great demon king, who is said to be the oldest among the 6 demons. That being is an evil incarnate and leads everything to destruction. Leads to destruction? Many nations, from ancient times to the Yin and Zhou dynasties, have fallen because of that being. Yin and Zhou? Could it be that spiritual beast you're talking about, Golden? That's right. It is the great fox Imi Mangniang, the golden fur 9-tailed, who has 100 faces and is thus also called the 100-faced one, with 9 golden tails filled with ominous demonic power. Chapter 246. Consort Ho. Part 2. Ordinary monsters are typically recorded in books known only to necromancers, such as the Compendium of Monsters and Oddities from the Classic of Mountains and Seas. However, this being with 9 golden tails was different. Records of it could be found not only in ancient texts but also in the historical records. Its first appearance in the historical records, considered in official history, was during the Yin dynasty. The fox monster Daji, who devoured King Zhou's concubine Suyang and transformed into her, corrupted the king, leading him to create the alcohol pool and meat forest, indulging in extravagance and pleasure. As a result, tyranny arose, and the Yin dynasty fell at the hands of King Wu of Zhou. This fox monster was called by many names, befitting its title of the 100-faced one. Daji of the Yin dynasty, Baosi of the Zhou dynasty, Lady Hua of the Tianzhu kingdom, Tamamonome of the Eastern Yin kingdom. Appearing in numerous forms and names, it influenced the fate and history of nations. Necromancers and monsters with knowledge referred to this catastrophic and worst monster as follows. The 100-faced king, the golden fur 9-tailed. Swish swish. The 9 golden tails emitting an ominous and tremendous demonic energy. With its matching golden hair and eyes, this monster was both mysterious and beautiful. This is beyond imagination. Chong Ryong, possessing Prince Jianjin's body, was at a loss for words. The demonic power emanating from Consort Ho, no, the 100-faced king golden fur 9-tailed fox who had revealed its true identity, was truly immeasurable. It was incomparable to the monstrous raccoon dog, the sea-slaying king, she had seen in the Saihyal Valley. In the first place, the sea-slaying king was in a weakened state due to being sealed. However, this worst calamity-level spiritual beast, known to be close to a divine beast, not only crushed her fighting spirit but also made her will submit. There's absolutely no way to face this. Even if one's martial arts reached the pinnacle, surpassing the wall of walls, it would be impossible. In the first place, the level of existence of this monster, which had existed since ancient times, was completely different. It was truly perplexing beyond words. How could one encounter such a being in the palace of all places? Ah! Chong Ryong's eyes wavered. Come to think of it, this golden fur nine-tailed fox, known as a great calamity, often appeared when a nation's fate was coming to an end. The current Central Plains was exactly in such a state. The Central Plains had become impoverished in many places due to the long-lasting famine, but the emperor and the powerful officials were enjoying extravagance, engaging in power struggles, and exploiting the commoners' blood and sweat. Even the martial arts world, which had opposed the government for the sake of chivalry and martial arts, was now colluding with them to plunder the commoners to the extent that it wouldn't be surprising if the current Central Plains erupted at any moment. If that was the case, this worst monster might have appeared to put an end to the weakened fate of this nation. Clench! Chong Ryong bit her lip hard. The situation was completely different from when the monstrous raccoon dog sea-slaying king, who was sealed and imprisoned, had not been fully released. She couldn't escape, and there was no hope of fighting against this opponent. She had never felt such despair before. However, swish! At that moment, Mok Jiangnun was composing himself. He was seen grasping his sword finger and once again gathering demonic energy into one. Seeing this, Chong Ryong couldn't hide her bewilderment. Disciple, you. Aren't you afraid? Even though you can feel this tremendous pressure that makes it difficult to even breathe, are you thinking of fighting? What are you thinking? Mok Jiangnun was always cold and rational. Therefore, he must have naturally realized that he couldn't do anything against this worst being. Nevertheless, she couldn't understand why he was burning with such fighting spirit. Oh. This was the same for Consort Ho, no, the golden fur nine-tailed fox. Although she hadn't transformed into her true form, she had properly revealed her demonic power, yet he didn't diminish his sharp aura toward her at all, which piqued her interest. So she opened her mouth. Even if it's just a single drop, since you made me bleed, I will kill you. Do as you wish. Aren't you afraid, human? If I die because I'm weak against my opponent, it's ultimately just the natural order of things, so what is there to be afraid of? At his nonchalant words, her eyes flickered with interest. She had encountered countless humans over a long period of time. Among those humans, there were certainly some who were so strong that they could hardly be called human. However, even those individuals, when suppressed by her and faced with the threat of death, showed their ugly sides and revealed their emotions of fear and pain. The corners of the golden fur nine-tailed fox's mouth twitched. Seeing a human who seemed to have lost all fear after a long time aroused both her interest and curiosity. She wondered if this human, who showed a nonchalant attitude while talking about the natural order of things, could maintain such composure even in the face of true pain and suffering. I have never seen such a thing. She had engaged in amusement for thousands of years, but the outcome was always the same. Regardless of the being, they were all the same in the end. Humans became infinitely weak in the face of desire and always succumbed to fear in the face of terror and death. The golden fur nine-tailed fox spoke with a radiant smile. Human, I'm curious to see how long your bold appearance can last. Swish. She pointed her index finger at Mok Jiangnun. At that moment, a mass of white light formed by demonic power rippled and rushed toward Mok Jiangnun's head in the blink of an eye. Swish. Mok Jiangnun moved his neck in an instant to dodge it. Oh. He dodged it? It was a mass of demonic power she had launched, taking into account the speed at which he moved. Yet, he lightly dodged it. Not bad. Then, Swish. Bang bang bang. The golden fur nine-tailed fox fired demonic power at Mok Jayangan in rapid succession with her fingers. It was so fast that it was impossible to even discern with the naked eye. However, swish, swish, swish. Mok Jayangan dodged them with minimal movement, narrowly avoiding them. I can't take my eyes off her. Mok Jayangan's eyes never left her fingers. Although the speed was even faster than ultra-high-speed movement, he could predict the trajectory by keeping his eyes on where her fingers were pointing. The corners of the golden fur nine-tailed fox's mouth rose. Ah, so that's how you dodged. You're a clever one. Then how about this? Whoosh. In an instant, spheres of demonic power, each about the size of a finger joint, surrounded Mok Jayangan in uncountable numbers. Try dodging this too. As the golden fur nine-tailed fox made a grasping motion with her hand. Bang bang bang. The small spheres of demonic power that had surrounded him simultaneously rushed toward Mok Jayangan. There were so many of them that they engulfed him in an instant, making his figure no longer visible. Disciple. Crunch. Just a single sphere of demonic power piercing the ground was enough to imagine its tremendous power, and he had been bombarded by such an incredible number of them. It wasn't something that could be dodged or endured. Chongrayang's expression, which had been hesitating in despair, changed to anger. Swish. With that, she abandoned Prince Jayanjan's body and came out. Then, she gathered all her spiritual power and struck the floor. Blood realm. Rumble. At that moment, blood began to form on the floor, centered around her palm. Drip drip. Blood droplets rising as if falling in reverse. Blood droplets gushed throughout Prince Jayanjan's quarters, dyeing everything red. This was her ghost realm created by her strong thoughts. Although she knew she was no match for the opponent, she had decided to help Mok Jayangan rather than perish without doing anything. However, crack crack crack. Cracks appeared in the quarters that were being dyed red. Then, as if nothing had happened, her ghost realm, the blood realm, disappeared. The golden fur nine-tailed fox spoke as if it was absurd. In front of whom are you arrogantly deploying a realm, spirit? Do you want to perish first? Swish. The golden fur nine-tailed fox extended her hand toward Chongrayang. Then, with a strong suction force, her spiritual body was forcibly pulled toward the hand. Chongrayang's expression distorted. Too strong. She knew she was no match, but the gap was too wide. To the golden fur nine-tailed fox, she was literally no different from an insect crawling on the ground. Grab. Ugh. Chongrayang's face, whose spiritual body's neck was grabbed by the golden fur nine-tailed fox's hand, contorted in pain. The demonic power was so strong that even a little force seemed enough to instantly annihilate her. But right at that moment, boom! A black line burst through the floor and rose upward. Slash! The black line slashed the back of the golden fur nine-tailed fox's hand. The golden fur nine-tailed fox, who had been trying to annihilate Chongrayang, lost her grip on the spiritual body's neck. Disciple? In an instant, Chongrayang's eyes widened. It was because she saw Mok Jayangan, whose entire body was covered in blood. Despite his appearance being a mess from the demonic power bullets, his eyes hadn't lost their spirit at all. Whoosh! As Mok Jayangan extended his left hand, Chongrayang's spiritual body was flung backward. Immediately after that, Mok Jayangan tried to strike the golden fur nine-tailed fox's head with his right hand in a chopping motion. However, grab. Before he could do so, one of the golden fur nine-tailed fox's tails wrapped around Mok Jayangan's body, and another tail coiled around his wrist. Squeeze. Tremble tremble. Mok Jayangan's hand, bound by the tail, trembled violently. The golden fur nine-tailed fox's eyes flickered with interest as she watched this. Look at this. Even though she had grabbed him with her tail, the force contained in Mok Jayangan's chopping hand was no ordinary. She could immediately understand the reason. Mok Jayangan's right hand was concentrated with tremendous demonic power. that demonic power was none other than her own. "You're interesting." The corners of the golden fur nine-tailed fox's mouth twitched. She didn't know what technique he used to absorb the demonic power, but it seemed he had endured the numerous demonic power spheres rushing toward his entire body and gathered that power to the fullest. And in the fleeting moment when her attention was focused on that spirit, he hadn't missed the opportunity and burrowed into the ground to attempt a surprise attack. Drip drip. Blood flowed from the wound on her right hand. Seeing this, the golden fur nine-tailed fox let out a hollow laugh. Huh. She had tried to push him to the extreme and show him the fear of death. But instead, he had counterattacked in such a situation, and on top of that, he had inflicted another wound on her. This was truly the first time such a thing had happened. Lick. The golden fur nine-tailed fox licked the flowing blood with her tongue and glared at Mok Jayangan with a cold smile. Through her golden eyes and disheveled hair, she saw Mok Jayangan's face covered in blood. Seeing his face, her eyes flickered with interest. "You?" That's because although she knew he was concealing his face with something, she didn't expect the face hidden underneath to be so young. No matter how she looked at it, he wasn't even in his late teens. And such a fellow had inflicted wounds on her body, who had lived for thousands of years, twice. This one is completely crazy. Rather than feeling unpleasant, she became even more intrigued. Creak. Creak. The blood vessels in Mok Jayangan's right hand swelled up as if they were about to burst. This was a phenomenon that occurred because the blood vessels couldn't withstand the concentration of demonic power in one hand, which was difficult to handle. Spurt spurt. And as a result of not being able to release that power, blood vessels burst in various places on Mok Jayangan's right hand, and blood flowed out. Nevertheless, there was not the slightest change in Mok Jayangan's expression. He only showed a look of regret in his eyes. At this, squeeze. The golden fur nine-tailed fox exerted force on the tail that was wrapping around Mok Jayangan. The force was so strong that even the blood vessels on Mok Jayangan's face, which was already covered in blood, bulged and seemed like they would burst at any moment. However, look at this. Even though he was on the verge of death, Mok Jayangan didn't even groan and instead stared straight at the golden fur nine-tailed fox. There was not a hint of fear in his eyes. Seeing his appearance, the corners of the golden fur nine-tailed fox's mouth twitched. She had seen so many humans, but in the end, no one had overcome their fear in the face of death. This was the first time. So, with the corners of her mouth raised, she said, "I have seen countless humans over thousands of years, but you seem to be the first human who truly shows no fear in the face of death." Mok Jayangan only glared at her without saying a word. Seeing such unwavering and upright eyes makes me curious. About what? I wonder if a human like you would also remain uncorrupted in the face of desire. Corrupted? As soon as those words ended, the splendid clothes that had been covering her body slid down. Along with it, an extremely beautiful naked body was revealed. Chapter 247. Consort Ho. Part 3. I wonder if someone like you can resist corruption in the face of desire. No sooner had she spoken than the golden nine-tailed fox's radiant red dress slid off her body. With it, an exquisitely beautiful nude figure was revealed. Her exposed body was so perfect it was hard to believe she wasn't human. With her full breasts, slender waist, and glossy white skin, she looked like a work of art. Any man who saw this breathtaking figure would be lost in a mire of desire, unable to regain his senses. Flinch. The golden nine-tailed fox smiled seductively at Mok Jayangan. "What do you think of me?" She took pride in her beautiful body. Among the numerous supernatural beings who had accumulated spiritual power and could transform into humans, few possessed a body as perfect as hers. Ho ho ho. No one could resist her body. Even the tyrant king of Een and the king of Zhou who overthrew her, as well as countless other kings, princes, warriors, and heroes who remained in history, succumbed to their desires. It was beyond the capacity of males to resist. Instinctively, males sought the best females. Those who succumb to desire quickly fall into depravity. She had corrupted countless men who had fallen to her temptation. The effects of their corruption were significant. While it affected only their close family and friends if they were ordinary individuals, it could sway the fate of a nation if the fallen were burdened with heavy responsibilities. This was the ultimate pleasure for the golden nine-tailed fox. A world filled with pandemonium and despair through the fall of one human. She relished the process. You will be no exception. The golden nine-tailed fox reached out to mock Jiang'an, who was bound by her tail, and lifted his chin to make him look at her. But one of her eyebrows shot up. She was curious about how he would react to her naked body, but mock Jiang'an's eyes were utterly devoid of emotion. He looked at her as if she were an ordinary object. You. Her eyes narrowed. What was this guy? Was he holding back? Human males in their prime should be overflowing with sexual desire. No matter the situation, it was normal to be overwhelmed with lust at the sight of her perfect body. How could he look at her with such indifferent eyes? She started to feel irritated. Well done, mortal. Chong Ryong, who was watching, was inwardly pleased. She had worried that mock Jiang'an might succumb to the temptation of the stunningly beautiful golden nine-tailed fox, but his emotionless face made her feel unexpectedly good. Your patience is impressive. The golden nine-tailed fox pouted her lips and then flicked her tongue, gently caressing mock Jiang'an's cheek. Sook. It seems you're holding back, but let's see how long that lasts. Her hand slowly moved toward mock Jiang'an's tattered clothing, which had been shredded by her spiritual energy. She grabbed his top and tore it off. Jick. Mock Jiang'an's top ripped away, revealing his bloodied but well-developed upper body. The golden nine-tailed fox licked her upper lip at the sight. For a young guy, you have quite a nice body. His face was quite handsome too, no, extremely handsome. Among human males, faces like his were extremely rare, even over thousands of years. Heh. There is a saying that adding gold dust to something already precious is a bonus. It is better when the target is worth seducing and corrupting. The golden nine-tailed fox, having stripped mock Jiang'an of his top, now moved her hand toward his lower garment. Squeak. Mock Jiang'an tried to use his demonic energy to free himself from her tail. But the spiritual power of the golden nine-tailed fox, a being close to a divine beast, was as vast as the open sea and didn't budge. As mock Jiang'an struggled, the golden nine-tailed fox spoke to him in a scolding tone. Stay still. This older sister will take care of everything. With that, her hand reached mock Jiang'an's waistband. Just as she was about to grab it, Chong Ryong shouted urgently. Stop it. Chong Ryong raised thorns made of blood to protect mock Jiang'an and aimed them at the golden nine-tailed fox's tail. Slash. However, the blood thorns didn't harm the golden nine-tailed fox's tail at all. Instead, they melted away, scattering drops of blood. You're quite annoying. I'll kill you first. Swish. At that moment, the golden nine-tailed fox looked at mock Jiang'an. Though his face was still emotionless, there was a faint sense of killing intent. Though it was faint, she could sense it. Look at this. When he showed intent to kill the ghost, he revealed faint emotions for the first time. She found this intriguing. She had thought he was almost emotionless, but he was reacting to a mere ghost. What kind of relationship did these two have? Yuong. Lesser beings wouldn't see it, but the golden nine-tailed fox could. The string of fate connecting them. It indicated they were bound by an ancient master-servant contract, the servant spirit. But why did they seem to share a bond? Siak. The golden nine-tailed fox's lips curled into a sly smile. She had corrupted countless humans over thousands of years, knowing better than anyone how to exploit their emotional vulnerabilities. So. Pat. Damn it. With a wave of her hand, she created a barrier of spiritual energy, instantly trapping Chong Ryong inside. Chong Ryong tried to break through with her spiritual power, but. Slash. Ugh. The moment her spiritual energy touched the barrier, it repelled her. The burning pain made her ghostly hands turn black as if they were being eroded by the spiritual energy. It looked as though her hands were being corroded. "Hey, spirit. If you don't want to be extinguished, you'd better stay still. If you keep this up, Yuduk." Before she could finish her warning, Chang Ryan, gritting her teeth, threw herself at the barrier once more. She sharpened all her energy, turning herself into a sword to break the barrier. Thud. Slash. Even in her ghostly form, she was a swordsman. She had gained many insights alongside Mok Jiangan. Her determination as a swordsman transcended even her spiritual power at that moment. Swish. The golden nine-tailed fox's eyebrow twitched. Even a high-level spirit was causing cracks in the barrier she had created with her spiritual power. This spirit. Was she willing to sacrifice herself? The golden nine-tailed fox's lips twitched. "I can't let that happen. If this ghost was extinguished, this interesting human's emotions would stagnate. She couldn't let that happen." Slash. Ayaya. Inside the barrier, it was like a thunderstorm, with blue lightning striking Chang Ryong. The lightning inflicted severe pain on her ghostly form, making her scream in agony. At that moment, quack! The golden nine-tailed fox's tail tightened around Mok Jiangan. Her eyes glimmered. The fierce dark energy inside him had suddenly grown stronger. She could be sure of it now. He is not emotionless. He had emotions. They just weren't easily displayed. If he were truly emotionless, it would be different, but since he had emotions, even if deeply buried, the situation changed. Pack. One of her tails slapped Mok Jiangan's cheek. It seemed like a simple slap, but it carried tremendous spiritual energy, shaking his brain. The dizziness made Mok Jiangan's head wobble. Lick. The golden nine-tailed fox licked his cheek and said, "You'd better stay still. Otherwise, I'll really extinguish that spirit of yours." She gestured toward the barrier where Chang Ryang lay on the ground, her spiritual form severely damaged. Her ghostly form was so transparent it was clear she was in a dire state. She lay there, trying to maintain her spirit form. "Are you threatening me? Think I'm joking? Try me. Such threats don't really, what?" Mok Jiangan momentarily closed his mouth at her words. Normally, he would have told her to do as she pleased, indifferent to whether she extinguished the ghost or not. But a strange feeling arose. He didn't want to see Chang Ryang extinguished. What is this? Had he any feelings left besides vengeance and malice? No matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't understand why he felt this way since he considered compassion and sympathy irrational. But logically, why did he dislike the idea of Chang Ryang dying? He couldn't understand. At that moment. "Since you seem to have grasped the situation, let's continue, shall we?" Chwack. Before he could react, the golden nine-tailed fox tore off Mok Jiangan's pants. With his pants shredded, Mok Jiangan was now completely naked. Ho ho ho. The golden nine-tailed fox laughed heartily and slowly lowered her head, savoring the situation. There was no place more honest than that part of a male's body. Even in the face of death, it couldn't be controlled by reason, driven by the instinct to procreate. Let's see how it reacts to such a perfect female body up close. The golden nine-tailed fox's expression suddenly turned cold. She had expected at least some reaction, but her assumption was completely wrong. As she stared intently at Mok Jiangan's unchanged state, for the first time in thousands of years, her pride was about to take a hit. So that's how it is? Fueled by stubbornness, the golden nine-tailed fox slowly approached Mok Jiangan, aligning her body with his. Mungle. Her full breasts pressed against his well-defined muscles. Pack. Wrapping one slender leg around his waist, she leaned in close, her breath hot against his ear as she whispered seductively. "Huh. I'll turn you into a beast." Chapter 248. Consort Ho. Part 4. Huh. I'll turn you into a beast. The golden nine-tailed fox had long perfected a particular skill. It was to worm her way into the weakened hearts of humans, tempting and corrupting them. The male human body was remarkably honest to its instincts. More than just seeing, direct physical contact, skin to skin, was where they became truly vulnerable. Suk. She pressed her body against Mok Jayangan, her full breasts soft and yielding as they touched him. Ha! With one leg wrapped around him, she blew hot breath into his ear. Sound was another means of arousing a man. Usually, by this point, most males would have been unable to control themselves and would have lunged at her. Yet, Mok Jayangan remained unfazed. "You're still holding out." He was at the age where his desires should be raging, but his patience was astonishing. Usually, when a man's desire began to surface, she would penetrate his mind, amplifying his deepest desires. Once addicted to such desire, they would gradually fall into depravity. Not reacting even to this, her stubbornness only grew. Smiling slyly, she leaned in closer. She had always used mental intrusion to show what she wanted, except for her first time corrupting a human long ago. Now she decided to change her approach. Lick. She licked his neck with her tongue, her hand sliding downwards. Her hand made contact with his manhood, stroking it gently to awaken his arousal. Fondle. She knew exactly how to handle a male. Caressing him with delicate hands, she tried to awaken the dormant desire within him. But... Schlick. Is this guy impotent? She had never encountered someone so unresponsive. He even looked at her with cold eyes as she carefully stimulated him. It felt as if she were dealing with a stone. Clearly, he had repressed emotions. She hadn't expected him to hold out this long. Enough. Mok Jayangan spoke to her coldly. Most women would have given up by now, feeling insulted by the lack of response. But the golden nine-tailed fox's determination only grew stronger. The more one controlled their emotions and desires, the faster and deeper they would fall into corruption. Let's see if you can withstand this. She smiled wickedly and brushed her palm over her face. In that instant, Sruk. The golden nine-tailed fox's face transformed into someone else's. Mok Jayangan's eyes narrowed. It was Chong Ryong. Known for her shape-shifting abilities, the golden nine-tailed fox had transformed into Chong Ryong, indistinguishably perfect. Mok Jayangan's eyes shifted. Unlike Wei Soyan, the third mortal of the Heaven and Earth Society leader, who looked almost like a twin of Chong Ryong, this transformation was flawless in appearance and aura. Mortal. Ha. The golden nine-tailed fox, now in Chong Ryong's form, called him like she would. Looking at him with slightly unfocused eyes, a stark contrast to her usual seductive gaze. Flinch. This time, he showed a slight reaction. Look at that. As expected, he was responding. Although Chong Ryong was undeniably a peerless beauty, the golden nine-tailed fox was even more perfect and beautiful. Yet, Mok Jayangan reacted to her. Noticing this, she intensified her efforts to provoke him. Mortal. Huh. I feel strange. Mok Jayangan exhaled deeply. Being perceptive and different from others, he knew this was an illusion. The real Chong Ryong was weakened, lying just over there. But... soft. Mortal. Do something about me. Seeing her in Chong Ryong's form, her chest pressed against him with a desperate expression, his body began to react. This is a fake. Mok Jayangan tried to maintain his rationality. But once his body started reacting, it was hard to control. The golden nine-tailed fox's eyes gleamed. Huh? He was far more endowed than she expected. She had seen countless males over the years. She could tell for sure. He was exceptional. Ah. This changes things. A sly excitement filled her eyes. She had planned to penetrate his mind the moment he showed desire, but now she felt an excitement she hadn't in a long time. Seeing him struggle within her embrace made her want to indulge him even more. Transformed into Chong Ryong, she pressed against him, feigning helplessness. Mortal. Huh. Mortal. As she caressed his cheek with one hand, a strange fragrance and spiritual energy seeped from her hand into his nose. Mok Jaeongun's eyes grew hazy. She whispered into his ear. "Huh. Ravage me like a beast." No sooner had she spoken. Grab. Mok Jaeongun roughly grasped her lush hips, pressing his body against hers. Kung. Like a wild animal, his force made the golden nine-tailed fox, in Chong Ryong's form, moan. "Huh." Hearing her moan in Chong Ryong's voice aroused him further. Feeling him become one with her, the golden nine-tailed fox's face flushed. Good. What female wouldn't enjoy this? Hurry. Hurry. She urged him, her voice low and demanding. Despite his wild push, he met her gaze and began moving slowly. Their faces were so close their noses almost touched, creating a charged atmosphere. Huh. What is this guy? She expected him to act purely on instinct under her influence, but he moved deliberately, gazing into her eyes with a dazed look. Oddly, it made her more excited. Different. Despite being enthralled, he was different from other males. Her breathing grew heavy, turning into sensual moans. Hung. What began as a means of seduction had now become genuine excitement for her. Corrupting him could wait. But then, an unexpected interruption occurred. Mortal. The real Chong Ryong, who had been nearly unconscious, started to recover some energy and witnessed the scene. Dash. Seeing this, she couldn't bear it even in her spirit form. She would have felt discomfort if the golden nine-tailed fox had seduced Mok Jaeongun with her real form, but seeing herself in the act infuriated and confused her. Mortal. You. Mok Jaeongun, with eyes clouded by lust, was gazing at the golden nine-tailed fox who looked exactly like her. T felt like she was the one engaged with him. Chong Ryong snapped out of her daze, feeling a peculiar mix of emotions. No. The golden nine-tailed fox was a monster who had seduced and corrupted countless men for thousands of years. If left unchecked, Mok Jaeongun would fall too. She gathered all her remaining strength and cried out. Mortal. Her cry resonated like a wave. If he were under the golden nine-tailed fox's spell, it might break him free. The golden nine-tailed fox sneered at this. Do you think he can wake up from my spell? Entranced by desire and instinct, there was no way he could break free. At that moment, she noticed something. Mok Jaeongun had paused momentarily in response to the cry. This guy? Had he heard that in his current state? Chong Ryong shouted again. Mortal. Snap out of it. Par. At her continued cry, Mok Jaeongun's hazy eyes wavered. Seeing this subtle change, the golden nine-tailed fox clicked her tongue inwardly. She had infiltrated his heart by transforming into Chong Ryong, but the real one being so close seemed to affect him quickly. The golden nine-tailed fox sighed inwardly. What a pity. She gave up on enjoying herself further. His mental strength was far stronger than that of ordinary humans, making it difficult to enchant him consecutively. Pack. She grabbed his head with both hands. Staring into his eyes. I'll completely enthrall you and make you mine. Suddenly, darkness enveloped Mok Jaeongun's vision, plunging everything into blackness. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Human. Shall we take a look at where your fundamental desires stem from? The nine-tailed fox delved into Mok Jaeongun's mind, sifting through his memories. To corrupt him and make him completely hers, she needed to read the memories that held the root of his desires or potential weaknesses. Relatively recent memories appeared faintly like fragments, but this man, more so than she initially thought. I like it. She had assumed this man was different from other humans. But his actions and thought processes seemed utterly detached from humanity. This was the first time she encountered a being who wasn't so much corrupted as innately close to evil and demonic energy. How have I not discovered such a man until now? She had long searched for an extraordinary being. It was because of a prophecy she heard during an amusement. Da Geo. No, nine-tailed fox. Someday, you will meet a human who is the embodiment of demonic energy itself. Human? How can a human be demonic energy itself? Didn't you say humans are incomplete beings, neither good nor evil? That's right. However, even this old man cannot fully comprehend all the secrets of heaven. Damn you. What's the point of telling me something you don't even understand well yourself? Find him. He will bring you what you have yearned for the most. What I desire, he will bring to me. Is that true? It is. Then how can I meet him? With your vaunted ability to read the secrets of heaven, you should be able to know, right? I do not know. Then there's no other way. We have no choice but to keep fighting. Will things really turn out this way? You're the one who proposed this deal, claiming you'd reveal what I've desired. But do you think you can end this fight with such a vague story? After contemplating, he finally spoke. All this old man can see about that man is a throne stained with blood,